It just really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They almost like put this whole show together just to give Goldberg his last match in WWE, almost to kind of get him to stop talking about WWE. Goldberg, he did a lot of interviews leading up to this, and a lot of them really weren't positive about the state of WWE. I can remember one whether if he preferred working under Vince McMahon or if he preferred working under Triple H. Goldberg just flat out came out and said, like, well, the old man promised me one last match, and the guy running the place now never gave it to me. And for that to be like not a planned response to try and like draw out that like maybe he knew that the match was coming, but he needed to like pull on the storyline that he was just going to show up on Gunther one day. It didn't make a whole lot of a sense, especially with how WWE as a whole, minus the Hall of Fame, doesn't really mention Vince McMahon at all. Besides for that, Goldberg, at one point it sounded like he was going to do his last match on the Indies, maybe against Ryback. It seemed that they were trying to put together something for Ryback and Goldberg to have a match in AEW. And when WWE gave Goldberg his last contract, it was almost because they didn't want him to go to AEW. I don't know how much Goldberg would have helped being under contract with them. You would have thought that even 4 years ago, Goldberg's probably only wrestling 4 matches a year. But then again, maybe they would have used them and they pretty much the same way that they used Sting, and maybe that would have been huge. But I think it's awesome that Goldberg is getting this last match in WWE. I do believe that I wish that Goldberg's last match would have been in WWE like 2 years ago. He had the big match against Roman Reigns. He came up short. He showed up on Raw. He said that he needed to go back and he needed to train, retool, get back to, up to 100%, and that he thought he could beat Roman and give it one more shot. If that match was 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road, that would have made a whole lot more of a sense. But I remember just being like a year later and being like, is Goldberg ever coming back? Like that's pretty weird that they let him go out there and pretty much say that he wasn't retiring and he wanted to give it one more go round, and they're just not going to give him the match. Goldberg versus Gunther is probably the best match that they could give him for one last run. Some people are complaining that Gunther is the world heavyweight champion, and maybe they shouldn't have put the championship on Gunther at the last Gunther versus Jey Uso match. And some people even draw the story of Triple H is the reason why they're doing that, because he wanted this match to be a world heavyweight championship match because they needed as much focus on how big of a Saturday night's main event this is because it was going up against AEW. I don't think the war between AEW and WWE is that strong to the point that people are really putting championships on people and doing championship changes and changes bookings just to make people not watch AEW's All In. That really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I look at Goldberg's shirt and it says Goldberg's last ride. To me, Goldberg's last ride is not one last match. Do I think he's winning this? No way. But it would make a whole hell of a lot of sense if Goldberg was to have one more match, whether that was at like SummerSlam, and then they got to close the door that way a month later down the road. I really don't know how they do it there, but and then we have the main event, Goldberg versus Gunther. Goldberg is a guy that I saw his entire run in wrestling. He's probably one of the legends that I can point at that said, like, I saw his highs, I saw his highest of highs, And I saw him all the way through his career. Basically, that's one way to point at me and be like, hey, I'm old. But I can think when, I remember watching Nitro when the Hugh Morris match happened, and kind of being shocked, like, wow, that kind of stuff doesn't happen. When the match first started, I kind of thought it was like an enhancement match for Hugh Morris, where he was just gonna beat somebody. And I'm pretty sure in Goldberg's first match, or at least in his first few matches, he was trying to show like how much energy he had and how much agility and how much of like an athlete he was. I remember him just kind of doing a flip in the ring, not like, off, not doing a moonsault or anything like that, like Brock Lesnar used to do early on in his career. But he was just like so hyped up that I think he just like did a backflip in the ring, or a front flip or something like that, landing on his feet. It could be crazy. I haven't seen that match honestly in a long, long time. But I knew it was special when Goldberg got the win, and the announcers didn't even know what to call him. I mean, I'm not pointing at the Goldberg versus Scott Steiner versus Kevin Nash match later in WCW, which is like the downfall of WCW, when the announcers were saying that Goldberg broke the script. And yeah, the match that you were seeing was not what they planned out it to be. And these guys were like basically really fighting for their lives out there. Goldberg got the win, and the announcers didn't even know what his name was. And then as like Mean Gene Okerlund tried to like grab him for an interview as he was walking towards the back, Goldberg just kind of brushed him off. I can't remember if he said the "who's next" line like as his own, honestly, because I don't think he said it into the microphone. I think he thought of it like as he passed Gene, as he was making his way like through the Nitro set tunnel, whatever you want to call it. But I was there when he beat Hogan for the World Heavyweight Championship. I can remember when he won the United States title from Raven. That was like the night I was on Nitro, the night after Raven beat DDP for the belt on can't remember what pay-per-view it was. Fall Brawl, I think, maybe, but a really freaking good match. And you think that like Raven's got to go out the next night, do the job, and hand the belt over as a transitional champion. He probably honestly wasn't that happy about it. And then I'll tell you the truth, like Goldberg won the title. He fought against Mr. Perfect, well, Kurt Hennig, at the next pay-per-view, because they already had Hogan and Rodman, DDP, and Bischoff in a tag match. And the way that match basically got put together was it was supposed to be a dark match where I don't think the title was going to change hands, but they were just going to, pack the house for everybody to see Goldberg go for the championship for the first time once the show ended. I don't think they had time to put Goldberg in a big feud because they just didn't have time before the pay-per-view. So they just sent Kurt Hennig out there. But Hennig's first run, Goldberg's first run with the title. He just beat guys. But he was beating guys like Kenny Chaos. Like his biggest matches would be on like pay-per-view, and he would beat guys like DDP here and there. But people always throw their arms up that like Kevin Nash booked himself to win the championship at Starrcade. Dude, when Kevin Nash wins that title, the people go bananas at Starrcade. I think that show was in Washington, D.C. I would understand if maybe it was in Detroit, in Kevin's hometown. Kevin Nash was over. I know that like Kevin Nash is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. That dude just dripped cool. Whatever that guy was doing worked. I remember watching Nitro, seeing the NWO out there, and like thinking if maybe I can pull off the Tupac bandana. I can admit that honestly, I went to the mall and I bought a Detroit Red Wings hockey jersey because he was wearing one on Nitro. It became a lot easier when WCW came out with a NWO hockey jersey. But I at that point in my life, I never even watched hockey. I just tried to be like that guy. But when Goldberg did the whole thing where he was trying to chase down the NWO, and then he bashed the car with his fist, and then he split some tendons, and he had to go away for a year because he needed surgery. That honestly kind of sucked because not having Goldberg on the show really drained WCW. I don't want to say that's the reason why they died, but that was one of the main reasons, because I think they were heating up Goldberg to the point where he was going to have to go through the NWO one by one until he got to the championship. The guy was awesome. He was never one of my favorite wrestlers, but I mean, besides for the Goldberg versus Hogan match, I mean, anytime that I went to a show that he was on it, it was so fun to just chant Goldberg, Goldberg, Goldberg with everybody. There's very few wrestlers that get a response like that from any show. You got to think of everybody still does the what Stone Cold Steve Austin. They do the Ric Flair woo. Everybody wants to be the Rock. Doing the people's eyebrow and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, you can say that Goldberg wasn't a wrestler, a great wrestler, but that dude was over in one of the most over times there ever was in professional wrestling. Even if he worked for WCW, I mean, everybody knew who he was. Nobody talks about it. He made that movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I think he was called a Universal Soldier or something like that. Can't tell you that I saw it, but that's how big he was. That fast Hollywood was like, hey, come make this movie. I know you've never been an actor, but you can do this. We'll make some money. You'll make some money together. When it comes to the match against Gunther, what I'm really hoping for is just a 4 to 5 minute ordeal. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I was saying that they needed to have 2 more matches on this show. Maybe Dom versus AJ, maybe Sammy versus Karrion, something like that, where they beat each other up in the back. I know with Evolution, they're probably not going to put any women's matches on the card unless they come up with a gimmick like on SmackDown, where basically 2 women are fighting for a chance to be on the card. Like the winner of this match fights against this other person. That they could do that because not every women's championship, of course, is on the line in their own pay-per-view at Evolution. That doesn't make sense to me. The second they drew up those 2 mid-card women's titles, I was like, they barely got time for the women's belts that they have now. I mean, they're not really focusing on the women's tag belts or anything like that. So I don't get it. But with Gunther, I think about him in the back. Basically, where he came to the back and talked to Jey Uso a week before their match on Raw and just said, hey, I'm not here to fight. I'm just here to, talk. And he talked about how much of an entertaining champion he was. He was a fighting champion. He thought that it was, good that Jey stood up for his friends and, put them in front of him. But then he would point out how dumb he was because, he keeps getting beat up week after week after week when he knows he has a fight against Gunther, one of the biggest matches that he's ever had in WWE. Maybe, the one thing I'm thinking of is that Gunther beats Goldberg, but the match is a beast where these guys are beating each other up to the point where Gunther honestly respects Goldberg. Maybe he even points at him and says, you were one of my favorites when I was a kid. I couldn't admit that when you were here because I don't want you to know that you were on my level. But, you're one of the reasons why I'm here. If they do something like that. And then, of course, raise Goldberg's hand in appreciation. And then bail out and leave the ring for Goldberg to end the show, maybe with his son in the ring, maybe with his wife, and say goodbye. And then Monday on Raw, maybe we got a discussion of is Gunther a good guy? Did Gunther turn? Is he having a change of character? Is he no longer going to be the big bully? Is he softening to the point where he does that? The point with Goldberg, I'm sorry, the point with Gunther that I fear that if they were to turn him face, I'm scared that he's going to turn into the Big Show. I'm scared that he's going to be losing matches on Raw. I'm scared that they're, well, we have to beat this guy, but we don't know how to beat him. So we're basically just going to have him trip over his own feet, or something like that, to the point where he's not, just taken serious, to the point of what he should be. But I mean, that's it. I mean, I don't think Goldberg's winning the championship. I think Gunther is going to win the match. There's a little part of me that maybe thinks maybe they do some sort of finish to set up a rematch at SummerSlam. But they've said last match so many times on WWE, Monday Night Raw and stuff, that I don't think that they're going to change their mind. I would pick Seth Rollins to beat LA Knight if we were putting money down on the table. I'm going to take Drew McIntyre to beat Randy Orton. Other than that, here's to wrestling fans. I do know that